Welcome into Red River North. Randy Heights, Dave Myrick, 107.7 The Franchise on this hot night, Randy. But we're engaged in fall practice, man. How are you doing out there?
Good, man. It's that time of year, 24 days away, and the countdown is on, man. It seems like everywhere across the board. And, you know, I don't know, Dave, from everything you hear about football practice and everything, I feel like it's about what you expect because, well, today pretty much I think was the last time media would get to see any type of practice. And I feel like I'm not saying they're holding their cards back by any stretch, but I feel like they're, you know what, if we need to keep some guys out to keep them from being seen and get a little healthy, let's keep them out. And it's kind of why I'm saying that is I feel like I wonder if media wasn't involved, if some of these guys with nagging injuries would be out there practicing. But they're like, you know what, no reason to go ahead and show them out there. Let's let them get healthy and we'll keep them out.
Well, if that's what they're doing, I can't blame them, man. I mean, you go through the roster last year, and then Oklahoma at one point down the starting four wide receivers on the entire team. I think this time, this go around, everything is under a microscope coming out of Norman, especially injuries. You heard stuff about Jade Knott late yesterday. Uh,
Mhm.
Kendall Dolby, I think, suffering some type of a wrist injury. Look, Randy and I are in the Oklahoma sports media. We hear things all the time. We can say some of it. Others is just, spitballing, speculation. I mean, Jake Taylor, I think, suffered some stuff today. Doesn't appear to be as serious. Jaden Knott, from everything we have heard, does not appear to be as serious. More of a stinger, opposed to the grade A separation of that AC joint that was being talked about last night. So that's definitely good news. But it's just coming off last year, man. I mean, every single time you see or hear the word injury, this Oklahoma fan base loses their shit. Ed Hare, what's up, buddy?
And you're right. That's exactly what happens. I mean, the fan base is like it could be a torn toenail, and the fan base would freak out right now. And that's the thing because I mean, Brent's pretty much said, none of them are serious injuries. I think it's the case. I don't know if there's any of them. Like if it was game day, and I don't mean Illinois State game day, but Michigan game day. I don't know how many of these guys wouldn't play. I think they would all be available. That's kind of the deal there, and it's just why not be careful? Why not just walk through the summer? I mean, in the sense you get your work in. They've got 23 more days of practice, Dave. It's not like they need to be playing on Saturday in a game. Saturday it'll be interesting. No one gets to see it, but it's their first scrimmage.
Right.
It's going to be a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah, Brent Venables saying I think between now and game one, they're going to have two full squad scrimmages, so still a lot to be determined. Simmons, the Western Carolina transfer that people kind of have penciled in at one of the tackle spots. Also, in the injury rumor mill, concussion, maybe not, being kept out. But that's where I think the depth is a lot better on that O line this season. We've got some comments rolling in, a couple of them interesting. What's up, Gmo? John Mateer is just another Blake Bell. Well, Blake Bell was 6'6", 260 pounds. Mateer's 6', 200. So
It's a little different.
not seeing that one. Do y'all love women? Yeah.
Sure,
Uh,
why not? Well, you didn't read it all, but yeah, sure, why
yeah, why not? I love my wife, and I guess she's a certain certain style of woman.
not?
Yeah, man.
That's how you can tell
Uh,
we're getting close to football too, but it's not here yet.
Yeah, it's coming. I know a lot of boys are tuned in tonight, kind of trying to get their fix. Josh Manning in the chat, welcome. Randy, heard some interesting stuff coming out of practice today about the rotation on the back end. We've all kind of thought Kendall Daniels at Cheetah was making a lot of sense, but heard that he worked some at the Mike Backer spot today to get he and Peyton Bowen and the name escape Powers, all in the field at the same time. I like that. I like getting as many guys as you can up to speed at Cheetah, and I like the fact they're trying to get their best on the field behind that defensive front. I still would like to see them have a set guy at that Cheetah spot they can rely on as we roll into game one, though. Just me.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you. And I think it is Daniels. And I think just what they're doing now is just like, hey, they know what they have in Daniels. I mean, after fall camp, and everything, I think they know what they've got. So now it's kind of like, hey, instead of being like last year or other years when a guy gets hurt and all of a sudden, hey, we need you to go play this position and it's their first time out there. I mean, if, if you feel like you got a guy that's going to be a starter, but he's versatile, why not let him get some work somewhere else? That way, oh, God forbid, so and so goes down hurt. Daniels can go in there and fill that spot, and then we can move Asamigo over into the Cheetah spot, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, it is about getting the best 11, and I think it's just now we want to see what everyone can do everywhere because that's what's going to make this defense even better. Them all being as versatile as possible.
Yeah, you just stole the word I was going to lead off with versatility. And then that seems to kind of be the rule of the day back there. I always thought Peyton Bowen, with his skill set, really good up around the line of scrimmage, a heavier guy, would fit in
Mhm.
at Cheetah. I like the fact they're bringing him downhill from that safety spot while keeping Daniels on the field at linebacker, which, of course, he played at OSU. That's a lot of versatility in the backfield. There's also a lot of unknowns because another injury. Eli Bowen not practicing this fall. Not really sure on the ETA on Eli, but as long as Gentry Williams stays healthy, I'm not worried about Illinois State. I'm not worried about the Michigan passing game with Bryce Underwood. But they need to have that set at least by Auburn at the latest.
Yeah, I mean, and I know we've heard different things. I really have a feeling that Eli game three will be back, but even then, if you go into game three and it's Temple, I don't care if he's healthy or not. Is that the one you're going to rush him back for? So I
Right.
mean, I will say that's kind of some of the good part about the secondary, and we talked about it last week. I think it's crazy to say back to depth and versatility on this team. In a way, this injury's it's bad. You want him out there. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But again, we talked about it last week. I think it's kind of good. You're seeing a freshman Gilroy step up and really impress coaches and everyone. It's given him a lot more snaps, which could be very key for Oklahoma in this season.
No doubt about it. The defense has been well dissected, and we'll talk more about that front that's getting a lot of hype. Even a Texas beat guy that's somewhat big tipped his cap to OU and said that's probably going to be one of the tougher fronts they play all season. I agree. But Ed here with the question: what freshman can make an impact on offense? Not too concerned about the D. Ed, wide receiver, Elijah Thomas, a 4-star from Shakota, Oklahoma, the same town that produced Carrie Underwood, is making waves. We keep hearing all kinds of stuff coming out of fall practice about Thomas. He's got a chance to play and play right away. I mean, Deion Burks is the A in the OU offense right now, but as you know, that's kind of dicey as far as his health from last year. Where's he at? Where's he going to be? How much can he take? I think Thomas doesn't need Burks to get hurt, Randy. I think he's that good. He has a pathway just by what he's doing in practice and showing to play and play often in this offense.
Yeah, no doubt. I think Thomas. We talked about him a lot last week. I think he's got a chance. Again, not to be Ryan Williams esque as a freshman, but if you weren't comparing a freshman receiver like Ryan Williams and Smith from Ohio State last year that had like just phenomenal, ungodly like freshman seasons at the receiver position, I think Elijah Thomas has a chance to be that guy that would really stick out this year. And you
Same.
got a lot to live up to, for other freshmen that have come in the last year. So I think he's going to have a really good year. And then my other one, I know he's RB5, but
Is
I
he
like,
though?
yeah, I like Blaylock, and I think Blaylock's a guy, and that's outside of the lineman. I mean, we all know Kazusian, but I think Blaylock's going to have a chance to really contribute quite a bit because his versatility back to the receiver position, I can see him being that guy that comes in a lot of times on third down as that receiving type running back that splits out wide or even just as a pass catcher out of the backfield. I think he's the guy that's going to get quite a bit of run in various situations because of his explosiveness. They're going to want to see him out on the field at times.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Tory Blaylock, true freshman 4-star. The guy is blazing fast, 4.45 in the 40. And Randy today at practice, I mean, only two healthy running backs going through drills, the rest being held out. Blaylock was one of them, and I'm with you. I think Arbuckle, he's not dumb. He sees this kind of explosiveness. He's going to want to get that on the field. I think Blaylock will see action. Might be some packages designed for him, or maybe you're right, comes in a split backfield and splits out the slot on third down as a pass receiving running back. But I can't wait to see what he's going to do. Returning kicks might be somewhere else they use Blaylock, but you've got to use speed like that is the entire premise. Michael Fasusi, Ryan Foji. I mean, we've heard a lot about Fasusi, but man, Ryan Foji, the news coming out the last couple of days about how he's looked and dominated a very good front and players he's gone against. I can't write him off to not see some playing time as well this year.
No, I think you're. It's one of those things. Again, I think they're going to have the steady five. At some point, it's going to be the starters. But I think there's going to be guys that rotate in because, to your point, what you said earlier, the depth they have on that offensive line, there's going to be guys that are just pushing other guys to like, hey, you have a bad series or two. I don't think they're going to have any problem going, hey, you're out. Suzuki's in, or Boji's out, and Simmons is in. Whatever it may be, I think they're going to be doing a lot of stuff. And I said it last week, and maybe it's because we're 24 days out, but I think there's a lot of reasons to feel very optimistic about this team as a whole, whether it's his defense or the offense. And a lot of that is just simply to the fact this is the most depth on both sides of the ball, Dave, on both sides that I feel like Brent Venables has had since he's got to Oklahoma.
It absolutely is. And look, I make fun of the term competitive depth all the time because people should. You hear it too much. It's way overused. But, when you look at the two deep on offense and defense and who's going against who, I mean, it's a who's who of names that have produced and produced a lot in D1 football, especially on the defensive side. On the offense, I still have questions about Troy Everett at center. That'll work itself out. But I mean, the tackle spots on offense should be locked down by very good candidates this season, something we did not see a year ago. Having John Mateer at quarterback that has some time in the pocket finally and can get a run game. Look, I'm with you. I mean, you take away all the excuses that this team might or might not have. If they play up to the level they can, it's a sleeper team to make the playoffs. I mean, I don't sprinkle sugar on a turd and call it a donut. You know this. That's just
Mm-hmm.
my opinion. Looking at the team, I think they're a sleeper to make it.
Yeah, and if people don't think that's true, it's just like somebody today was asking me, what's the floor and what's the ceiling for this team? I'm like 6-6, the floor. I think that's the floor. But the ceiling is 9-3 with an outside chance of 10-2. I think they fall more in the 8-4 range.
Sure.
But when we're talking floor and ceiling, I mean, that's where this team's at. And and that's why I think this month long leading up to the season opener, I don't blame coaches for. I'm not saying taking it easy on guys; they're working hard. But when guys are a little linked up, do you really want them out there practicing 24 days out, or you want to go, hey, why don't you get 100% healthy before you get back out here? We don't need this little wrist injury or shoulder injury to turn into a something that you're dealing with for 12 straight weeks of the regular season. Get it healthy, get back out there, and that's kind of where I look at the term, like you said, the one we don't always like to use, competitive depth, allows them to do it. You've got other guys that can give the defense a good look on offense, other running backs that can get out there and play, where it's not like the defense is getting somebody that's going halftime or anything like that. It's a quality, high level player that the defense is going against.
Dirty Aggie. I know Randy's swimming in it. Jimmy Satterfield, Boomer. Thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. The football fever is here. You can just feel it. It's in the air. 3 weeks away. We're finally going to stop talking and get kickoff, and then have games to talk about. But hearing more stuff out of Oklahoma practice today. The running backs are what they are due to being held out. Some precautionary, but we've already talked about Blaylock. Taylor Tatum is another one sitting out a little bit dinged up. If he comes back and healthy and has the right mentality, he's another talented. I mean, the number one ranked running back in high school in America coming to Oklahoma. That's sitting on the bench is RB 3 or 4 right now for Oklahoma. So that's a very deep room, and it might be tested. Josh Manning. Yeah, let's talk about this. The floor and ceiling for Oklahoma. That's interesting because this schedule, everybody knows, is daunting. Or is it? Is it just the names? Alabama, Tennessee, Old Miss. But when you kind of dig deeper, what's Tennessee going to be without Nico? Who knows?
Well,
What's Alabama going to be? They got a new quarterback they're breaking in. I'm not sure how tough this schedule really is.
don't get me wrong. I think Bama's really good. I do. I think regardless who they break in, because kind of with even though it's a new quarterback for him, but it's not for Arbuckle. I mean, you look at DeBoer; he knows how to handle an offense. So I expect them to be good offensively. They have a ton of talent on defense, but guys, it took a backward step a little bit last year for Alabama's defense. That's not Nick Saban. That's not Kirby Smart running the defense for Alabama. They had some lumps there. Now I think Oklahoma loses that game. I don't want people to think I'm over here being a homer. I
Sure.
think Oklahoma goes into Tuscaloosa. But I think to your point, when you talk about Tennessee, this is not the Tennessee that came to Norman last year. I mean, for God's sake, their highlight packages, they're editing out the quarterback that threw an interception. I mean, that might tell you all you need to know right there that hey, they're not really sold on what they got. And plus, they got the fat chick and Josh Heupel as their head coach. So, I mean, he might get himself into a coma before we get into that game. You know,
Yeah.
that's all I know. And plus, you know, it's a tough place to play. But let's be honest, Tennessee's not been invincible there. So I think a lot of it is names.
Got some
Yep.
got some messages rolling in. Wins against Ole Miss, Tennessee, Missouri, Auburn, LSU shock. I want to see Venables make game time and halftime adjustments. That's a great point, Ed. We'll circle back to that. Losses against Texas and Bama, South Carolina is the toss up. Yeah, I want to touch on that one, Randy. Earlier this week on the franchise, talking to Matt and Tyler about the most important game, I think. I've said all along Michigan, but South Carolina is right there due to where it's at on OU's schedule. If Oklahoma rolls into Texas undefeated, regardless what happens in that game, they're going to be forgiven if they lose to a top five Texas team. If they win, great. They're on top of the mountain. Then you have to go sustain that. The next game is at South Carolina. If you lose it, you have to regroup and prove that you're an upper tier college football team in the SEC and that Brent Venables can bounce back. That's at South Carolina. So either way, coming out of Texas, that South Carolina game to me, and he's right, it's a 50-50 toss-up. I love Sellers. That's a tough place to play, but if OU is what we think they can be, that's a game they need to go win.
Well, and I'll say this with saying that I think it's hard to predict because as much as I like Shane Beamer, he's had his own issues as a head coach.
Sure.
If he's got it all rolling in the right direction, there's a chance South Carolina is a top five matchup then too. And I'm with you. OU needs to go win it, but I don't think it's the end all be all if they lost back to back games to South Carolina and Oklahoma and to Texas, it would both be top five matchups. You know, to me, it's that you can't let those two turn into 3 or 4 game losing streak. Now, that being said, if South Carolina has stubbed their toe a couple of games, yeah, Oklahoma's got to do that. They've got to go win that game.
Yeah, I mean, you also look at South Carolina as kind of the 50-50 because you look at the at Alabama, doesn't look good. LSU at home, I would kind of,
I like that one.
yeah, I mean, I kind of favor Oklahoma in that one playing in Norman. So yeah, that South Carolina game's interesting. Tennessee, at Alabama, those are going to be very tough games. Auburn and Norman, Jackson Arnold is what he is. He showed he has talent in the past. Has that completely vanished? Has the confidence gone? I don't have a lot of faith in Hugh Freeze as a head coach, Randy. And I love the Norman. So yeah, I don't think Auburn pulls that one off. So that South Carolina game might be one to circle.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is one I think to be concerned, but I'm not one that I think fans should get panicked if they lose 2 in a row right there. With that being said, it depends on how they lose. If they're losses like they were to Texas and Oklahoma or Texas and South Carolina last year, hit the panic button.
Yeah.
If it's a loss on the road at South Carolina and you give up a touchdown late, but it was competitive and nothing stupid is what caused you to do it, I don't think you panic. It's kind of like what I said to me at least. It's hard to do prediction radio or prediction podcast, whatever you want to call this, because so much of it is dependent on how it goes. Just like when everyone goes, How many games does Brent have to win this year to keep his job? And we've had the discussion, and I'm like, I don't think it's a win total number. I think it's how you get to that win total. It's just like losing 2 games in a row. It's how you lose them. If it's due to what Ed asked us about here later, wants to see Venables make in-game adjustments. If they're losing 2 in a row because of coaching mistakes and everything else, then it's a major red flag and a major concern. If it's you're losing a close game and it's just football on the road and in a rivalry game, I'm not near as panicked as if it's, oh my God, that reared its ugly head again.
Yeah, I view South Carolina as a winnable game for OU on the schedule, and yeah, whereas Alabama just I don't like that for Oklahoma. So that's why I've kind of got that one circled. But you guys are right, Ed. You're right. The halftime adjustments for Brent Venables have not been there his time in Norman. In fact, usually when they have the lead at the half, it goes downhill in the second half. If you check the losses under Brent, that's usually what happens. Bad turnovers, boneheaded plays, lack of discipline. That stuff is the only caveat I see when talking about this team. We've talked a lot about the positives so far. The one thing that's still there is Brent Venables. Can he prove he is a college head coach with everything Oklahoma has taken off his shoulders and given to Jim Nagy, given to Ben Arbuckle, and said, Brent, run the D and make good decisions. You're out of excuses. Can you do it? We're going to find out. I mean, this is I just said I don't think the schedule is tough as people think it is, but it's still a very tough schedule. I think Michigan is a good football team. Auburn's a good football team. All of these teams can beat you if you're not buttoned up and disciplined and make good choices as a head coach. So we're going to find out top to bottom if Brent Venables has learned. This is year 4. It's supposed to be a head coach's full recruiting cycle is in. They're all his players. Fingerprint everything about this is Brent Venables. So we'll see.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that's why I keep saying it's a big year for him, not only to keep his job, but to the fact I feel like they've fixed all the problems talent wise,
Right.
to a lot of degree. Then now, really, if you don't have a good year this year, it's not because you're still waiting to get these guys in or that guy in. It's solely on the coaching decisions, coaching adjustments, what you do. You call a fake field goal, you don't get a delay a game in celebration. I mean, you keep it going and you get it headed in the right direction. And that's why I think it's such a big year for Brent. There's no other excuses on the board. Talent's taken care of. Now it's about what can you do as a head coach.
Jimmy Satterfield, the Sooners have a top 20 class this year. As of right now, no. Can they go win enough games and get one? Yeah. But Cruel, the Edge at IMG, don't hold your breath.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I'll say this much: recruiting, looking right now, not looking top 20. Does Oklahoma end up getting there? Who knows? I mean, there are so many kids that are going to switch and flip and do everything over the next, few weeks. And you mentioned Cruel. We'll know August 12th where he's going, down to a 3-school race, Texas, Oklahoma, and Ole Miss, It's going to be really interesting to see. But also, I think we've all said this, and I think schools are going to learn it. You build with talent from within through recruiting, but also with the portal. It's a fine line as far as that mixture. And I think over the next couple of years, we're going to figure out what Nagy's fine line as far as his mixture is. Is it going to be a majority of guys that are high school recruits, or hey, we're going to have a 30% high school recruit roster, and the other 70 is going to come between, the transfer portal?
Yeah, the transfer portal to me has negated the importance of recruiting to some extent. I don't think it's as important to get that top 10 class as long as your portal class is, on par with the best in college football. Why are you going to take a flyer on a top 250 4-star guy that's never played when you can get the exact same that's proven in D1 for the same price? It's just business at this point. But, to answer your question, winning cures a lot. Oklahoma starts winning, as Cord said, you roll in the Cotton Bowl 5-0. Yeah, watch them start flipping and watch the class build. But as of right now, for kids, dude, they're taking a chance with Oklahoma. They don't know if this staff is back next year. They don't know if their coordinator is going to be back next year. So I get the wait and see mode that they're in. And yeah, I think Cruel's going to Texas as well.
Yeah, and here's the thing: are we all excited about Cruel? I mean, trust me, I don't think recruiting rankings are the end all be all. Look how far he fell. in the rankings once On3 and Rivals came out with their joint rankings. What do you go from a top 100 recruit to a top 400 recruit, I believe?
Weird.
You know, I mean, it's kind of weird, you know, and it's kind of the deal. And I think Sooner Cowboys right. Nagy was brought into OU strictly for the transfer portal. That's not totally right, Sooner Cowboys, because he's put together a staff, and I got to talk to him a couple of weeks ago, and then he talked to a whole group. He's got a staff. Don't get me wrong. It's about I think it's a 7-man staff. 3 are high school guys, 4 are portal guys, and that's why I say it's going to be a fine line as far as that mixture to see what they think is going to win at this level. And here's the deal: whether Venables are here or not, Nagy's going to be here. You know, and I think that's why everyone knew there was going to be negative recruiting against Oklahoma this year because it is a hey, Brent doesn't win, he's out type deal. That's one reason I think they got Nagy in place last year was to try to keep whatever recruiting class they had in place, but more importantly, to try to keep the roster together if there is a change at head coach.
And I think that'll no doubt help. And I see the logic there. You know, you want to get these guys as close to Nagy as you can and his staff to where they build a relationship and trust. And that way, regardless of what happens coaching, they still have that as the bedrock. But if you're an OU fan, and I've talked to quite a few the last year that are just out on Brent, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear about what the administration's done or the good moves. And look, I can't argue with them. You know, from what I've seen the last 3 years, I cannot argue. The only thing I can do is look at the moves Oklahoma's made as a football guy and say, I think they're going to be better. But the point is, if you're an OU fan, you should want this to work for Brent Venables. You should want 2025 to go well. He figures it out, and they go into 26 with the same staff and same coach. They don't want to go down this road of 4 head coaches in 8 years, right? That starts dark days for programs.
Well, and even if it wasn't 4 head coaches, it's never good for any program, especially yet again in the era of the transfer portal where it is open as soon as the year and everyone can leave the roster if they want. I don't care if Brent was followed Bob Stoops, you know, and was having this type of year, and everyone would go, "Oh, you can replace a guy." In this era, when all of a sudden, hey, got rid of the coach, and every one of those guys who are committed to BV and loves BV, they get rid of BV, and 80% of that roster leaves.
Right.
It's dark days for anyone. I mean, so as an OU fan, whether you like his decisions or not, you should want him to succeed right now because I I don't know what happens to any roster right now in college football that's at a level of Oklahoma that has desirable players for schools like Georgia, Texas, Alabama. I mean, all those schools would come calling at 80% of these guys on Oklahoma's roster. If all of a sudden they're going through a coaching change, a lot of those guys may go, you know what, I chose Oklahoma over Texas. Now they got rid of Brent, I'm going to Texas. Or I chose them over Alabama. I'm going over to Alabama now. You know what I mean? All of a sudden that's going to open up so much. So BB winning this and having a good year is huge, I think, for a program.
Got some good comments coming in. The only argument I give BV is this his first head coaching job. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also saw a guy in 1999 on the North Oval come out and say there's going to be no excuses to not win right now. That was Bob Stoops and won a national championship the next year as a first time head coach.
But can I say one thing? And he's not wrong, and you're not wrong. But the other thing I'll say opposite, it kind of goes to what I was just talking about in 99. That roster was loaded with talent, and it's kind of funny because we joke about it. It is kind of true. Bob Stoops won with John Blake's talent.
He did.
You know, I mean, it was a loaded roster, and to the point of what I was saying earlier, think about this in 1999, and I'm not saying Bob wouldn't have done a good job because he was a great coach. He was a great coach, right? But to my point here is in '99, if we had the open transfer portal and they got rid of John Blake, how many of those guys probably stick around for Bob Stoops? I don't think a lot of them do. Roy
Well,
Williams.
I mean, the fact he was a defensive coach might have helped guys like Rocky Kalmus stick around. But you know, I look at a couple moves he made that did. It was away from Blake. He brought in Josh Heupel.
I mean, don't get me wrong. That's what I'm saying. He made moves, yeah.
Lawrence Marshall, right? And they put him in the right spot, the talent that was there that wasn't being done prior. So I get it, and also rebuttal that with this. Brent didn't take over a bare cupboard either. I mean, I think Oklahoma his first year was ranked 6th in the nation as far as returning talent goes by the rivals metrics. I mean, and Dylan Gabriel, pretty good college quarterback.
But remember how many guys got in the portal when Riley left? A lot of guys left on that roster, and so it's a fine line, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Anybody that's sitting there thinking, "Oh, I'm done with Brent, let's just move forward," if you're an Oklahoma fan, not the right attitude to have in
No,
this modern era, because you're going to have 60% of this roster. It's like, you know what? I'm out. I'm out. Kind of
no,
like a lot of the big guys did when Riley left. I'm following him.
no. If you're an Oklahoma fan, you want this to work. You want Brent Venables to be the man. I don't. And if it's for personal reason you don't like Brent, I don't know what to tell you because Brent's about the most likable guy on planet Earth. It's not that, and he runs a very clean program, top to bottom, turning young boys into men for life, which is actually more important than wins. But here we are. Ed Hare. Teams that have heavy transfers will not build deep depth. It sends a message developing players that we don't believe you can. Kirby wants to limit portal players to around 10 a year. I see both sides. I think he's right. I think you have to have a bedrock of recruiting that you build up within your culture. That's your main thing, and then portal you use to just plug a few different places. No, you cannot build a roster with strictly portal. It doesn't work.
No, I'm with you. I mean, no, and that's why I say it's that fine line. Is it a 40% core players, 60% portal, 60% core players, 40%? And to your point on Kirby, he's right. He wants to limit it to 10 a year, but also go look at the ones he goes and gets. He
Right.
fills in those gaps. I mean, that's kind of the thing. When you look at, that's why I say you've got to have your core, but you can go get those big time guys out of the portal. You know, whether it's your quarterback, a big receiver, a running back, a defensive lineman. That's where you got to fill around. And that's why, to be honest, the NIL is going to still be huge. Everyone talks about it. It's huge because that's how you're going to retain some of those guys and people to go, oh, I think, to be honest, what you see with NIL rosters coming up, Dave, if you see people out there spending a fortune in the portal and NIL, that tells me they don't have the guys on campus. Because I think one reason you don't see, yes, they went and got hot and spent money on him here because they really needed to have the quarterback right this year at Oklahoma. But you don't see a ton of money on other portal guys like the huge dollar amounts. Because if you've got a good roster, that's where you're spending your NIL dollars. You're keeping those guys at home to build that core.
Yeah, I think that's what we saw, an attempt to last year with Billy Bowman, Danny Stutzman. They spent a lot to get those guys back in the fold. It paid off. Oklahoma's very good on defense last year. I think they did the exact same this year to retain the majority of their defense and whatever offensive weapons they had from last year. But I think the biggest loss for OU the last couple of years was Cale Gundy. Had OU just suspended him instead of firing him, I don't think last season happens. Randy, look, Cale Gundy's the best recruiter in Oklahoma history. He was always in charge of a group that was very good, whether it was inside wide receivers or running backs as a coach at OU. I don't think that move helped Brent Venables. It probably had to be done, but I don't think it helped.
I don't think it helped, but I don't know how much it really hurt because we talk about recruiting until this year when now they can truly negative recruit against it. They've had top 10 recruiting classes. They've had dynamic talent in the recruiting classes, so it's like, and then on the coaching side of things, they were good groups, but with all the injuries they had, if he's still coaching inside receivers, Kilgundy's not making a difference on last year's staff. When you have those injuries that they had on receiving, anyone making a difference? You know?
I didn't think you'd like the Cale Gundy take.
No, and I love Kel. Here's the thing: people think I'm ripping, but I like Kel. But I'm like, to think an assistant coach is going to make that big of a difference. Take a 6-6 team and make them 9-3. And
Yeah,
here's the other thing: everyone wants to rave on Kel, and I like Kel. I've talked to him 1,000 times, but at the same time, he was never a coordinator. And people are
no,
like, well, they should have named him. Guess what? He had many a time to get a coordinator's job well before Venables was on the roster. Bob never put him in that spot to be the main coordinator.
no.
There's reasons behind this, guys.
And
You know,
whether it was just luck or the guy had an eye for talent that would pan out, he did recruit some of the best players ever at Oklahoma, and they played well and had great careers. Yeah, they've been top 10 classes the last 3 years, but we've had a lot of flameouts at Oklahoma. Not good talent evaluation. Probably another reason why Jim Nagy was brought on board. You have the best Ed Hare, you have the best GM in college football. We'll see. Well, we've only had a sample size of the offseason. We'll see. Nagy is the only GM that could get a coach fired. I see 9 wins as a ceiling, 8 as a floor. Just don't have a Red Cross tent on the sideline. Glad we don't play all. Well, we might. We might meet up in the SEC championship, play the Georgia Dogs.
I think Ed is right, though. I mean, the Red Cross tent on the sideline is the biggest difference. Hell, it's the biggest difference between last year Oklahoma being 8-4 and 6-6 at the end of the regular season.
Sure.
I mean, it's amazing, what injuries we all know they affect the team. But to be the fact that it's like, oh my God, every time you looked around, a receiver was down. Offensive line couldn't play together as a unit. I mean, let's take the other side of the ball. Defense, for the most part was healthy last year, Dave, right?
Mm-hmm.
They played pretty well all year long. All of a sudden, you have another unit that's hurt everywhere you look. They don't play well. You end up 6-6, 6-7 at the end of the year.
That happens, and coming off a 10-win season, so I mean the proof's in the pudding that Brent can win 10 games. Were there problems that season to point? Absolutely, but I think it's a guy learning and feeling his way through how to be a head coach. It's going to come to a head this year, one way or the other. If you want Brent to come back, he's got a chance to go earn it. If you want him gone, he's got a chance to go earn it or not, and he will be gone if he doesn't. So.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about Cord's comment. This was overlooked a second ago. Dude hired Leach and Sumlin before their prime. He put a hell of a staff together. Talking about Bob Stoops.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the best staffs ever. Brent Venables, Mike Stoops, Steve Spurrier Jr., Jackie Shipp, Bobby Jack Wright. The list goes on. Yeah, Mike Leach. And I think going back to last year, that was a mistake you can pin on Brent not going out and getting the best available instead of hiring, Seth Luttrell was just kind of an easy – lazy choice. He's already on staff. It made sense. We kind of talked ourselves into it because he knew Jackson. But looking back, you're Oklahoma. Go get the best out there and surround yourself with it.
I think that also shows the spot they were in at the quarterback position. Everyone knew they were wanting to go to Arnold. And who had the connection to Arnold after Levy left? Seth Luttrell. And in this era of open transfer portal, I don't think they wanted to risk. All right, we've already let Gabriel go because we want this guy to be our guy. Do we not promote Seth? And I think if Brent was a coach that had a little more cachet at the point in time with the offensive side of the ball, I don't know if he goes with Seth.
Right.
But I think the fact he couldn't afford to potentially lose Arnold as well, that's probably the reason he went with Seth. And it's really sad with Seth, to be honest with you. I think he's been a pretty good offensive coordinator everywhere else he's been. Last year, he looked like the most inept guy ever as a coach. And it's kind of head-scratching. And if we don't think he's got a good offensive mind, OU fans love Josh Heupel and think he's great, right? They forget that he couldn't coach his way at Oklahoma as an offensive coordinator. That's beside the point. But guess who brought Seth Luttrell on staff this year? Josh Heupel. I mean,
good luck.
I know, but I'm just saying, he's a guy that's respected. And so I do sometimes wonder, and I've talked to Kelly Gregg about it, even though he rips Seth, but he also defending. It's like you can only do so much with injuries. And when you have a quarterback that's not doing the right things on the field, it always falls with the coach's feet. But sometimes it's not the coach's fault either.
I mean, quarterback's the biggest aspect in that. If you put all your eggs in one basket of a 5-star quarterback to be the future of your program and he's a bust, that's not going to feel good for anybody involved. I don't care if you're the running backs coach, wide receivers coach, O-line coach, and that's what we saw last year. It all stems from that spot. If you've got a guy that can move the offense, score points, everybody looks great. If you got a guy that's just giving the ball to the other team for pick sixes, everybody looks like shit, and that's where we're at. But to all the naysayers, and look, I was one last year. I went on post game on the franchise after every loss, calling it like it was. Embarrassing, inept, an absolute, slap to the fan base of Oklahoma, year one SEC, unacceptable. To all those people, Oklahoma's trying. They see it. I mean, they went out and got the best running back in the nation, the best quarterback in the nation, the best OC available, and probably the best GM in college football. to take everything off Brent we're talking about and say, just be a head coach. So they see it, they get it, they're trying to fix it. And to their credit, I mean, again, I go back to their roster. I look at their ceiling and floor. There's not a lot of weaknesses on this team if they stay healthy. There's no reason why they can't win 9 games.
Exactly, and I think that's not only because it's year 4, but I think that's the reason why winning games this year is so important for Venables to keep his job, because all the excuses are gone.
Right.
There's only one thing that needs to be proven this year. There, it's not talent, it's not depth, it's your head coach. Does he have what it takes? And unfortunately for Brent, that's the reason this season is so huge. There's not a built-in excuse anywhere. The only built-in excuse that would be there for him this year, and it would be Oklahoma fans' worst nightmare, is
Injuries.
back to Ed's point about the Red Cross tent.
Yep.
It's like all of a sudden you look at the depth, the injury report each week, and there's like 30 guys listed each week.
Yeah. Sooner Cowboys. Optimistic take, and you know what? Go with it. Should be able to win 10 or 11 games. Why not? If you're an Oklahoma fan, that should be your expectation every single season. They're about winning championships and, double-digit wins. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, I guarantee you they're not out there going, all right, guys, let's go 9-3 this year. They're shooting for undefeated, just like every other team in college football.
Holy cow, Sooner Cowboy. Floor is 8-4.
Well, hey, why not?
Well,
you know what? It's
I
that
guess
time of year. Be excited.
As long as you have the card, it is legal in Oklahoma.
Be excited, Sooner Cowboy. I like it. CJ Vogel, that's kind of the TBF or whatever guy for Texas came out earlier and talking about OU's defensive front. One reason why there is a lot of hype for this team, Randy, getting down to serious business here. The Oklahoma defensive front, has been diced up a lot, both here on the radio, everywhere. I think with the depth they have on the 2 deep, what they can rotate in, both in the middle, but more important on the outside this year with legit pass rushers, I put them up against anybody in college football. That includes Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Alabama. I don't care. I'll put Oklahoma up there with anybody.
Hey, and that's the thing. And I think I said it last week, or I said it on the air on the franchise. I don't know what. But I look at this 2 deep in this front 7. I don't mean like first-round draft picks, so people back off. But out of this 2 deep, I think almost everyone gets some time in the NFL.
Sure.
And that's what you want. And if they've got that finally, that's a reason you should feel pretty good about where this front 7 can be.
Yeah, Sooner Cowboys better have a top 5 D this year. Look, I agree. I mean, we're talking about a front 4 that at any given time will have 3 5-stars and the down 4 with PJ Adebawore, David Stone, Marvin Jones Jr. off the edge. And that's not to mention Demonic Williams, that I think is the best of the bunch right now as it stands.
Mm-hmm.
And Grayson Holton, another guy that has been a little nicked up. They're probably going to take some precautions with this week, but he's one of the better interior pass rushers in the country. And that's not even to bring up or Mason Thomas off the edge that finished second in the SEC a year ago in sacks. So that's a lot of talent and speed and depth up there. Holton is the prize, in my opinion. Cord, we think alike, dude. I've been on Holton's train for 2 years. He finally got some full-time playing time last year and flashed. But Randy, that to me is the bedrock for what Oklahoma does or does not do this season, is that front.
I fully agree. And it's kind of funny. I think 2 guys also that are very key, and you mentioned Williams, and I think Jaden Jackson, and
yes.
neither one of them, here's the key. Everyone's going to look, I think, in the and go, man, they didn't have like 12 sacks or 5. To be honest, neither one of those guys, in my opinion, need to have a single sack on the year. What their job is to do, eat up the middle of that offensive line, make the tackles for the running backs come up the middle, take blockers where your Kip Lewis's, your Kobe McKenzie's, your linebackers can penetrate through the line. I mean, we both worked with a man, Kelly Gregg, that was kind of that type of a nose tackle, and he will tell you, he's very humble. He'll tell you how important his role was on like those Ravens defense. He takes up a block or 2, and guess what? Ray Lewis eats. And that's where I think Jaden Jackson and Williams could be the big size guys. So all of a sudden, oh, look, each of them are taking 2 linemen to block. guess what? That leaves the speedy linebackers to wreak havoc on the opposing quarterback.
No doubt, man. Those big guys squatting in the middle, they're hard to move out of there. And if it takes a couple O linemen to do it, not only does that open the edge for Oklahoma, but that also opens up whoever is right next to them. I mean, that is gigantic stuff in the run. I think Jaden Jackson, Dominic Williams will specialize in that. Then maybe on passing downs, you get Grayson Halton, David Stone in. That is lethal. Koye and Wine, man. Yeah, those are two other names. Look, Redwood Wine, we've heard everything about the last 2 weeks. The guys come out of nowhere. I expect him to play. Okoye, I think Brent said, is the strongest player on the entire team. So that's a wealth embarrassment of riches on that Oklahoma defensive front.
And if you heard Michaelis Chavis this week, I mean, when he talked, was it Monday?
Right.
I believe it's when he talked to the media. Okoye is high on, and Adebore is another guy they're very high on, feeling like maybe from at least trying to read the tea leaves, because I'm sure the coaches don't want to build him up, but almost feels like, as opposed to the last 2 years where the coaches were almost trying to talk him up, going, he's a freak, he's got to contribute. Reading the tea leaves, it almost feels like maybe the coaches feel like the lights finally clicked for him. From being healthy and now his natural God given ability, maybe things have finally kicked in for him, And you know what? Center Cowboy need Marvin Jones Jr. to get at least 4 sacks like he had last year. I don't know if that is as important. If those other guys that we just mentioned, Wine, Okoye, what you need him to be is the leader at that defensive end. Be a 5-year guy that's played at a high level that helps those young guys learn the game just as much as anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, not wrong. And PJ Adebore, I mean, dude, 6'5", 260, and lightning quick around the edge. If that light switch has come on, that is a day one talent that we're throwing in the mix of everything we've already brought up. I love that interior, though. When you can get that pressure up the middle and the quarterback has nowhere to step up to into the pocket, that is when you're a championship defense. I think Oklahoma has the ingredients to do that. Cord, he was a split second from having double that, got close.
Yeah.
He's not. I mean, but I think Randy's right in the regard. They've got those guys already. I think Marvin Jones Jr. just needs to be a steady contributor at the end on that defense, and they've got the guys already. If PJ Adebore has taken that step, he can, I mean, burst on the scene and be the best pass rusher Oklahoma has this year. He can.
And that's with me saying Marvin Jones is going to be the starter. And rightfully
Right.
so, I think he is. So I'm not ripping him. He's
Right.
a talented guy. He was a huge get for him in the portal. But, it's kind of like, in my opinion, Williams and Jackson, where I said they don't need a ton of sacks. You don't need a ton out of Marvin Jones Jr. You need him to almost – I kind of like this because I feel like we know what we got in our Mason Thomas and Norman Wright. And I think, it'd be nice with those 3 young guys, if a lot of times you could have Jones in there with a Wine or a Adebore or an Okoye, and then Thomas plays the other time. That way you don't have to have the 2 veterans. Like the veteran guy out there making havoc with some of the young guys. If you can get into that type of rotation, that I feel like makes this defensive end position even more lethal. If it always has to be Jones and Thomas out there and then the 2 young guys mix in there, I don't know if it'll be as dominant as I think it could be.
Yeah, I agree with that. And what I can't wait to see is when like Bryce Underwood comes to Norman and you've got Brent Venables with this front and guys that can really penetrate gaps and they're going to have to slide protect on things. The blitz packages, he can roll off that with an offensive line already preoccupied by Oklahoma's front. That's going to open up a lot, but that's kind of jumping back to the start of the show that I talked about. You have to have a secondary you can trust and leave on an island. I think with guys like Gentry Williams and Eli Bowen, you can, but I mean, how long does it take to get those 2 starters back on the field at the same time? Also paramount of importance for me. I'm with you. He can miss Temple, not that big of a bump, but if he's not back by Auburn, I don't like the way that looks. I love the guys behind him. They're just unproven.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard 2 weeks for him, so we'll see. That's why I say I'd still make it 3 weeks if I were them.
Yeah, I agree with that.
If it's really 2 weeks, let's make it 3. No reason to send him out there in Philly. Why don't you go look at the Liberty Bell? We'll just keep you over here.
Go grab a sandwich, man. Enjoy Philly.
Some cheesesteaks, yeah. I mean,
Cheesesteak, yeah. We'll see. Before we wrap up, I did want to kind of jump around the league a little bit. Nussmeier down at LSU apparently had a scare today. Man, for a minute that got real. An ACL tear was.
Tower? Oh wait, no.
God. Shout out to the LSU social media manager. Think before you put a tower up next time. That didn't last very long to their
They
credit,
got
but
that down quickly, didn't they?
yeah, very quick. I think I got a screenshot, thank God. But it was out there for a minute today that Nussmeier had feared to tear his ACL, and that fan base was losing their shit. I don't blame them, but it came out afterwards that everything's fine. He appears okay. Oklahoma fans remember all it takes is a shot of Novocaine for Nuss, and he's Superman. So good news there for LSU.
Yeah, no, I mean, and to be honest, that's their season.
No
I mean,
shit.
they've got young guys behind him, but I mean, they lose Nuts. Yeah, Brian Kelly's looking for a job next year.
Yeah,
And he might be anyway, but I'm just saying, they lose Nuts, and it's game, set, match, man.
I can't argue that. I mean that's a lot with pretty much any college football team, though. In fairness, like if Mateer went down for OU, uh, Hawkins might be better than what LSU has.
I would say if Mature goes down, I think Oklahoma, like we say, top is 10-2. I
Yeah,
think top is 8-4 at that point in time.
I
There's
agree with
probably a
that.
young guy in there, yeah. But
But
yeah, I think
I think Nussmeier's a top 10 pick. I'm sold on the guy. I think he's a really good quarterback. So good news there. Florida, man, going through about the same thing Oklahoma went through last year as far as wide receivers, down another one today. I mean, for a coach coming in already kind of on the hot seat, not kind of. I mean, Billy Napier's ass is on fire. Not good down in Gainesville.
yeah, and you're right. That's why it's like if you're Venables right now, early on in practice, you're like going, oh, thank God. At least I'm not going through because Napier and him are in the same situation, and really Napier may even have a little more heat on him because it's been uglier at times. It feels like in Florida since he got there. But man, if you're Napier, you got to be going, this isn't good.
Dude,
He may be out of there by week 4.
it's,
I mean, I'm being honest. If he's
I
willing to
agree.
keep mounting that way, I
Yeah.
don't think they're going to have any sympathy because, oh, you had all these injuries. They're going to be, well, what was the excuse for 3 years before?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, look, when a base and an administration's done, they don't really want to hear it. I mean, it's win or go home. Jimmy Satterfield, we need LSU's medical staff. Yeah, no kidding. Whatever they gave Nussmeier last year, it worked.
smelling
Ah, or something else. I'll leave it there. And to round out, talking about the Texas Longhorns, we got some of their fans in here. Interesting from Cord before we came on that Michael Taft is being worked out at some nickelback. Also, the highly touted defensive end that chose Texas over Oklahoma, Colton Vasek, is running with the ones up there with Simmons. That's intriguing, Randy. They're kind of doing some experimenting down in Austin.
Well, and I think that, and I know Cord mentioned it himself. I mean, when I say there's not holes, but they're deep talented, right?
Sure.
But they're replacing some things, and I think they're trying to figure out what's going to be the best mix to get them and keep them at that level. I mean, they're preseason number one in the coaches poll for a reason. They're very talented, but we've all seen a lot of teams have that. And when you have issues, if you don't figure out what you want to use and who you want to use early, those can turn into problems late in the year. And I don't blame them for trying different guys out at different things 24 days out from opening day. Let's see what we got when we got to replace some things and make sure we have the right best 11 guys on the field.
It's all about the best 11, boys and girls. We got to wrap it up. Cord's got a show to do at 7:55. For everybody in the comments, Sooner Cowboy, Satterfield, too many to name, but guys, thank you for hopping on. You make the show what it is. For Randy Heights, I'm Dave Meyer. We'll talk to you guys next week. Hang in there. Kickoff is just a moment away. Good evening, everyone.